Welcome to the 10x Growth Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Saradha Sriram, Business Technology Strategist. Today, we are joined by Dr. Edie Goldberg, a nationally recognized talent management expert and co-author of The Inside Gig, How Sharing Untapped Talent Across Boundaries Unleashes Organizational Capacity. With over 20 years of experience and a PhD in industrial organization psychology, Edie helps organizations unlock hidden potential within their existing workforce. She's been named a top 100 HR influencer and serves as immediate past chair of the SHRM Foundation Board. Edie, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share with everyone more about the Inside Gig.
Let's start with this. Most companies are sitting on a gold mine of the untapped talent and don't even know it. So tell us how the Inside Gig can transform the way we think about our workforce.
You know, the whole concept around the Inside Gig really came up. I was collaborating with my co-author, Kelly Stephen Weiss, and her company at the time, which is a tech company in Silicon Valley, but global, big global company. They were really struggling with work was really changing quite quickly. You know, what was an important project one moment was, deprioritized because of some new, urgent client need. The next moment, skill sets were changing rapidly within companies. So our world was becoming so much more dynamic. And yet we had this kind of static workplace. And she said, I really know that we needed to change how we were working. And we had been working with a group of amazing thought leaders, CHROs from huge global companies, really thinking about the future of work and how HR needed to change our talent strategies to better meet this changing nature of work. And so Kelly started with the, idea of, I think from a technology standpoint, I know how we can help make this work, but it literally rewrites all of the talent rules about how we think about operating within a company. So she asked me to partner with her to really kind of create the new roadmap, the new talent operating model for how a company could be more agile and to move talent around within the organization. The title, The Inside Gig, is obviously pulled from the gig economy. And what was happening at the time was, there was a big rise of the gig economy. It's still happening today. Flexible talent is still really, really increasingly important within organizations. And we started thinking, how can we apply the concepts of the gig economy, but inside of a company? So how can you take somebody and identify them for a project that has to get done right now, right away with the right talent to do the right work at the right time? And how can we do that actually with your own internal resources? And that's where the ideation of the Inside Gig came about.
That's lovely. If you define this for listeners, what exactly is an inside gig and how does it differ from a traditional job posting?
That's such a great question. Traditionally, organizations have perhaps posted a job that somebody could apply to, so another internal position, but it's a whole job. The Inside Gig is really about posting project-based opportunities. These might be projects where you can apply skills that you have that you don't use in your day-to-day job, but you still, kind of bring that expertise to your company and you can use that on some other project. It might be an opportunity to learn and grow. Many companies have implemented gigs, internal gigs, to help expose employees to new areas of kind of growing importance within the business to help people build new skills that are kind of leading to the future of that business. Or it just might be there's an urgent business need in this. We wrote the book before the pandemic happened, But then the pandemic happened, and it really kind of showed the importance of having this kind of agile talent strategy because, we'll just take banking. Everybody was coming into a bank. All of a sudden, we needed new ways to interact in a more digital manner. And so all of a sudden, projects really shifted to creating these digital technologies that enable this whole new world of work that has arisen since 2020. Well, for talent to be able to move to these projects, we need to understand the talent that we have. So, having gigs where you can move people temporarily, you don't have to leave your job. That's the beauty of the inside gig. In the past, the only way to get a new opportunity was to leave your job, the safety and comfort of a job that you always known and loved, and go to some scary new place that you didn't know if you were really going to like it. Well, by taking on a project-based opportunity, maybe in another part of the business, you de-risk it for the employee somewhat because they're still staying in their kind of core role, but then they're getting to expand their view of the company. And they get to apply their skills in a different context. They get to work with different people. All of these things lead to personal growth. So this idea is very different from moving to a job for the purposes of learning and growth, but simply using a project, something smaller in scope, defined. It requires certain skills. It's for a specific period of time. It's not, kind of an ongoing need. Projects can last from a week to a year. It could last that long. But they usually are in the kind of, 1 month to 3 month time frame, but shorter term and really kind of a defined, we're trying to get this one thing done.
If I picture this, say an employee opens their company's internal talent marketplace and discovers project opportunities they never knew existed across different departments, what does that experience look like and why is it revolutionary?
Yeah, this idea of being able to see and have line of sight to other projects going on, through Alpha organization is huge because we know from research that it's actually easier to find a different job in a new company than it is to find a new job within your existing company. So most people leave to get new learning and growth experiences. But now what we're doing is we're exposing people to new opportunities within their own company. We're making it easy using AI technology to connect people's skills with the skills needed on different projects and kind of putting those together where employees are actually able to see what's going on in another part of business. And maybe a good employee who understands your culture, who's really good fit with the organization, maybe rather than leaving the company to go find a new growth experience, maybe they can find that within your own business. Maybe they can, but maybe they don't even want to leave their core job. Maybe they just want to learn and grow. And by taking on a project elsewhere in the company, they can use their skills, but they meet other people. So start to think about what this does for your company. It creates new networks that facilitate the flow of getting things done. It exposes people to different parts of the business that increase their business acumen. So now when I come back to my core job responsibilities, I do so with these new relationships, with these new insights that make me a better and more valuable employee. So it's good all around. It's great for the employee, but it's also really great for the company and the manager that loans out that employee because they come back with new insights, experiences, relationships that help them get their work done.
What you said is so true because I've been a beneficiary of exactly what you talked about, being able to participate in multiple gigs, holding on to my primary job. And again, to vouch for what you said, when I came back to my primary role, I was able to add a lot of value to it, and not just that, cross train some of the people in my team to do something similar to this. And we were able to go on rotational, roles, which not only enriched their career, but also, helped our company by maintaining the budget by not having to go hire somebody from outside. Talking about all this, what is the most compelling results that you are seeing? Are we talking about like a percentage point improvements in retention, or are organizations seeing game changing transformations?
Yeah, there are a lot of case studies of amazing results that companies are having with implementing this new talent strategy, if you will. So, one would be at Schneider Electric. They were really concerned about employee retention. People were leaving. Kind of one of the top reasons people said that they were leaving their company is because they wanted new opportunities to learn and grow. And so they implemented an internal talent marketplace, which is a technology that uses AI to connect skills of individuals to skills on projects and make that match. And within the first couple of years, while they were doing that, they were able to decrease by 11% the number of people on exit interviews that said that they were leaving because they didn't have access to new opportunities that help them to learn and grow. So that's one great example that's related to retention. Employee engagement. Companies are really, interested in employee engagement because there's a lot of research that shows that when we have employees who are more engaged, we increase organizational productivity. Really important. At Here Technologies, where we first incubated this idea, they were able to increase employee engagement in the first year of implementing this talent strategy by 9%. Now, was it all due to internal talent mobility? Maybe not all due to that, but we believe that there was a significant bump by people because they had this ability to kind of move around within the organization to learn new things. But that wasn't the only thing. They really kind of going back to what you just talked about, which is rather than having to go out and hire an external contractor who's really expensive. I'm sorry, I'm talking about myself. But rather than bringing in an external talent to the organization, or wait a really long time to find that perfect fit to hire a new employee, they were able to leverage their own internal talent to work on critical projects that the business had to get done. And then when they looked at kind of the salary that they would have had to have paid those people to do those projects. Now, remember, those people weren't leaving their jobs. They were taking on these projects, kind of working with their manager about how to move work around so that, these critical new projects would get done. When they only counted people who were working outside of their regular P&L, so meaning when Edie Goldberg, who's in human resources, was working on a project in finance or marketing, only then they counted it as a labor savings. And in their first year, they estimated their cost savings at $14 million by being able to leverage their own internal talent rather than having to go out and hire other talent to do that kind of work. I mean, that just speaks for itself, right? I mean, who has that kind of ROI? This is a talent strategy that makes a difference. It helps you retain talent. It helps you learn and it helps you develop your talent. It helps increase employee engagement because people get to choose the work that they want to do rather than only their manager telling them what kind of work that they're going to do. Lets me explore my career options. That's why we're retaining talent within the organization, and it decreases your costs either by, if you're looking for a full-time employee, it's still your cost of acquisition of moving an internal employee to a new role is a lot less than hiring somebody from external of the organization. But then also just kind of the idea of borrowing talent to work on a project also is a cost saving. So many ways that the ROI can pan out on this. It's, for me, literally the biggest talent strategy change with the biggest ROI that I've ever seen in my entire 30 plus career in human resources.
That is impressive. I want to talk a little bit about implementation reality. What you said sounds transformative. Where should organizations start? What would you say are their first steps?
Uh, the first thing, I think the first place you have to start is with a mindset, right? Because the biggest barrier to implementing this talent strategy is, you're not going to be surprised when I say this, it's manager talent hoarding, right? My talent, hands off, don't touch them. They can't go anywhere. They got a lot of work to do for me. Managers need to understand the value of moving talent around within the organization so that we let them work at their optimum value, not just being kind of boxed into a job that limits what they can do. If we can work with our employee, we can understand, hey, maybe these tasks take a lot of your time, aren't really your core skill set. Maybe that work is better done by somebody else. Let you lean into work where you can add more value to the organization. So this idea of breaking free of the constraints of our job is really kind of a big thing. So the implementation challenge is really around manager talent hoarding and getting managers to understand that sharing talent across boundaries is kind of a better way. So the first place I start with is mindset. The second place I go to is, how do I do this? Oh my God, how do I do this? Our world has always thought in terms of jobs. How do I move from thinking about jobs to thinking about projects? And so I have worked with companies to help them build workshops to help managers break work into its component parts. And this is a hugely important strategy that everybody's talking right now about because of AI. So if we take work and we break it down into its component parts, we can think about what parts are better done by AI, what parts are best done by this employee, what parts might be done by somebody else. Maybe we should hire a freelancer to do, which frees up our employee to do more high value work that brings better business into the company, more innovation, better customer service, whatever that is. But we need to think about work much more flexibly. And I think what we're seeing, it started with internal talent mobility, but now with AI and the technical revolution that we're really going through, it really kind of explodes this idea of thinking about work differently and how we move it around. So number one is mindset shift. Number two is, how do we break down the work? And then number three is really lean into your managers and say, what are the critical projects that you need to get done that maybe you don't have the talent on your team to get done? Or what are the things that have been on the back burner because you don't have enough capacity on your team to get done? There's really important work that has to get done within an organization, and we need to get more creative about how we get it done.
Can you share a compelling success story of any organization that has done this well?
So I gave the Here Technologies example. That's obviously, really great example. And, one thing I will point out, it's a technology company, right? So 60% of the projects within the company were technology based, but 40% of the projects were not in technology. So it can be done in, kind of all parts of the business. The other thing that I want to point out, and I have seen this in multiple companies, is when a company puts a project on their internal talent marketplace platform and they say, we need X, Y, and Z skills to, execute on this project. And people apply from, whoever has those skills. You don't know who has what skills in your company. What they find is they end up putting together these cross-functional teams, like people who come from diverse backgrounds. And this was a really big deal for Here Technologies. If you're an innovation company, bringing together people with diverse backgrounds is how you innovate. And so these technologies, these internal talent marketplaces, can help you quickly form project-based teams that have these diverse mindsets that can really help you work on projects from different perspectives. And I think that that's really revolutionary. Other companies, I'll give an example of from some of my friends at Tata Communications. They've been leveraging this concept, but not just in the project-based way that I've been talking about, but really thinking about how do we revolutionize work? And many times people have to go out on leave, whether it's a medical leave or a maternity or paternity leave. And, work still has to get done. And sometimes we backfill those roles with temporary talent, but you can also break that work into projects and then, have people get critical components of that done through project-based work. But what I loved most of all that they did was when people were ready to come back from a leave, they didn't make them come back into a full-time job right away. It wasn't from 0 to 60 in 60 in 30 seconds or something. They were allowed to come in and take on project-based work to get reacclimated. Now start to think about all our growing baby boomers in the organization. Unilever, another big global company, is using this concept to take what were previously very, successful employees and allow them to work on their own terms, allow them to work more on a project base in the amount of hours that is acceptable to those highly valued employees, but they kind of get to create their own terms, create their own gig, and still retain that incredible knowledge base, within the organization, those skills, that talent that we want to hold on to. But, sometimes people don't want to work full time. And if you look at the changing dynamics of our workforce, we need to leverage these kinds of talent strategies in ways that help us tap into more talent, but let them work on their own terms.
Those are great examples, especially the ones that you talked about, women coming back from maternity. That's a great way to ramp up, with time and project-based work. How has remote work changed the internal gig landscape? What are the trends that you're seeing in 24, 25, in the current time frame?
Yeah. Before when we were all, working in the office, and we really thought of that talent as, kind of the people in the building. And when we moved to remote work, people realized that we could get work done anywhere. And it certainly, from a talent perspective, unleashed the idea that I can tap into talent from anywhere in the world, which really releases more gig opportunities to talent wherever I can find it. I recall one conversation I was having with folks at NASA. Here's a very, very technical organization that has a lot of brilliant people, but they were at all the NASA kind of installations across the United States. But they only worked, those employees only worked in those sites. But when they went to remote work, they could see how talent at one facility might be able to help a project in another facility. It releases this idea of we can get talent from anywhere, and helps us to think more flexibly. So I think that remote work, certainly our experiences with remote work during the pandemic, have really helped companies see talent in a much more fluid way. And I believe that our globally dispersed workplace, that globalization of work, is a permanent thing. I know that there are a lot of issues going on in the world, a lot of immigration concerns, etc. But this idea of being able to tap into talent, where we know that people have the right skill sets, we just got to go find out where those skills are in the world and be able to access that talent. I think remote work really kind of helped further facilitate that strategy. And we can do it through gigs because we don't all have to be physically present to do that work.
Absolutely. If you want to make it actionable, say that if I'm a HR leader, or if there's another HR leader listening and thinking, I need to start this on Monday, what are the first three things that they should do?
I think that the first things that people have to do are really to understand your hidden talent. What are the skills that people have? There are a lot of really easy ways to do this. One is you can ask people to, kind of, if you will, download whether it's their LinkedIn profile or their resume. But I come to an organization with lots of experience. Once you put me in a job, you tend to think of me in this box as my job. And that those are only the skill sets that you think of me as having. But the truth of the matter is, not only did I do things before I came to you, but maybe I have a side hustle, or maybe I have a personal, passion project on the side. I'm very into AI and, leading AI within organizations. That's not in my work profile today, but something I'm very capable of doing because of the time I've invested in learning that. So you really you have to ask people, what skills do you have that I don't know about, so that I can leverage them? And then you need to create a platform where you can kind of, if you will, harvest that information. What's amazing about technology today is there are tools out there that can scan your workplace files and identify what kind of skills you have based on the work that you do. Now, that's in certain technical roles and certain technical companies and, like Jira-based platforms. But it's kind of scary cool that I can just simply look at your work files and find out what skills you have, and you don't even have to tell me what skills you have. So technology is really releasing a lot of cool ways to find out the talent that you have. But what's important is that we don't underestimate the people that we have in a given job and realize that they're much more than the work that they're doing today.
As organizations identify these hidden skills, they might not even know that they exist in their workforce. What is your vision from where the internal talent mobility is heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's funny. We had this vision and it's laid out in the book, but it's amazing how a global pandemic kind of accelerates the future of work. So our vision was, first, you would start sharing talent within your organization. And then the future would be that you would share talent across your business ecosystem. So, and I'll give you a very specific example. Here Technologies, where we first incubated this idea, they provide location-based services to companies like Daimler, Audi, etc. And they thought maybe that they would share talent across those companies. In the pandemic, Cisco, who is a global food distribution company. What happened during the pandemic? Our food needs went from our workplace cafeterias and hotels and airports to our local grocery store. So they actually loaned out their furloughed talent to the local grocery store partners. So they started sharing talent that way. There were other ecosystems that were created. We tell a story in our book of Disney and Siemens sharing talent across their organizational boundaries to create huge win-wins for companies. But the future vision is really, kind of understanding your core talent and maybe talent that you really need that isn't resident within your company, and then thinking about perhaps a business partner and how you might work together to share that talent.
That's a very, very interesting phenomenon. If you could change one thing about how organizations think about internal talent today, what would that be?
The one thing is that putting me in a box. I've experienced this personally. In my career, I was with a consulting firm and I was in the human capital management practice. That was my box. And they started to develop a measurement practice. And I wasn't allowed to touch anything there, but I had 8 semesters of advanced statistical training. Research was pretty much my core expertise. In fact, I had created the company's first employee engagement survey. But I was a human capital consultant. I was not a measurement consultant. I couldn't go there. Why we put these artificial barriers is beyond me. So it would be understand, and we're starting to see this. We hear a lot in organizations about the skills-based organization. That releases me from the confines of my job and thinks of me in terms of all the skills that I have, maybe the skills that I'm learning, and allows me to flow to work where I can best use the skills that are of the most importance to my organization. So thinking in terms of skills and not jobs is the one thing that I'd really like to change.
Thank you, Edie, for sharing your personal experiences and especially joining us at the 10x Growth Strategies podcast and diving into how companies can transform their approach to talent by tapping into the skills and capabilities they already have. We really appreciate your time and insights. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.